Our speaker today is Nina DeRosa. She was certified as a Master Gardener in 2016. She's a retired registered nurse and researcher and is now focusing her nurturing skills on the earth and her garden. She's been a passionate gardener for more than 20 years, and she loves sharing her passion and knowledge with others. So this is her lucky day. My name is Colleen Kennedy. I'm joined by Julie Hansen and Leslie Fillmore, and we'll be facilitating things for Nina. So without further ado, take it away, Nina.
Great, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for your support, and welcome everyone to our discussion on leaves and what we should do with them. This is being presented by the Virginia Tech Corporate Extension Master Gardeners. The Master Gardeners of Northern Virginia have been in practice since 1985. We disseminate information on scientific, sound gardening practices. We do that through the help desk, which has been operating even through COVID. We have plant clinics that are slowly coming back, and they're usually at farmers markets and libraries around the area. We have multiple demonstration gardens, which give people the benefit of going to see these gardening practices in use and to discuss things with gardeners as they tend their garden. We have online seed distribution program in the spring where we distribute free seeds for your spring planting. The most important thing that I'd like you to take away is our website, www.mgnv.org. It's a wealth of knowledge, information. We have online classes that have been pre-recorded and live ones like this. So please, if you have time, peruse our website and give us some feedback as to what you find there or what you need to find there in the future. So let's talk about leaves. Leaves are our most abundant crop in fall. And what do we do with them? Did you know that leaves mine deep into the subsoil and bring us all kinds of minerals to the surface? Potassium, magnesium, phosphorus. There's so many things that they mine up from deep within the earth. Did you know that leaves have more than twice the mineral content of manure? And they're free. What should we be doing with these? And how can we take this windfall of goodness and put it in our garden to have it work for us? Fallen leaves create habitats for many, many insects that overwinter in our garden. There's an article that I posted in my resource, and it will be in one of the handouts, and it's called Life Within Leaf Litter. And it will completely blow you away on how many things overwinter in the leaves, from insects to salamanders, frogs, all kinds of insect, butterflies, lightning bugs, and they overwinter so that we'll have these for the spring next year. They lay their eggs, they make cocoons, and they live in those fallen leaves. They also provide foraging for the birds during the winter, but they eat some of the insects, and it's all natural. You don't have to put out bird seed or suet or anything if you leave your leaves. We can also add leaves to our vermicomposting worm bins. And on the leaves, there are microbes and springtails that get into these bins and actually help the worms to compost leaves to turn it into beautiful compost for our gardens. I can't leave out the soil food web slide. I use it in a lot of composting discussions because it's so important to show the importance of organic matter. We have our trees and plants that pull in this carbon dioxide from the air, and through the process of photosynthesis, they make carbon, and they turn that CO2 into organic carbon and food, organic matter for then feeds the bacteria and fungus, arthropods, and so on and so on. So you can see the importance of organic matter in our soil. It's paramount for the whole food web cycle. And I know that a lot of you are native gardeners. You plant native flowers to bring the beneficial insects into your yard all summer long. And then in the fall, we throw out the leaves and all the insects for the next spring. So think hard about keeping your leaves around your perennials and trees as mulch. Leaves also act as a soil amendment. They provide a perfect nutrition for the beneficial microbes in the soil. Because the microbes are in the soil, they naturally work with the plants that exude a food for the microbes to protect your plants from disease. They protect them from soil-borne sicknesses. And of course, they reduce the need to add fertilizer to your soil, because not only are you adding organic material, but you're feeding the microbes in the earth that create a circle of nutrition for your plants over time. And leaves, when they're worked into your soil, also provide a great soil structure improvement. Leaves can be used as mulch too. They used to insulate tender perennials. They regulate the temperature of their soil. They insulate soil so that you can have prolonged microbial activity, which is really important for your plants and flowers. Leaves also control weeds because they block out the sun and the wind and the air that winter perennials need to germinate. So it's a great weed control over the winter and also during the summer. They cover root vegetables. So if you have root vegetables in your garden and you're not ready to use them, you can leave them there, cover them with leaves, and dig them up as needed. You just want to make sure that you put a marker there in case you have snow in your garden, you'll be able to locate them. And of course, as a mulch, they retain moisture in your soil. Leaves can also be used in your leaf compost. They are the carbon or browns that you add to your compost to hasten the degeneration of organic material. You can also make compost by simply storing your leaves in bags, moisten them a little bit, poke holes in your bags, and just leave them in a nice shady place and forget about them. If you want that action to occur quickly, you can turn your leaves every few months or whenever you feel like it, or you could just leave them there. There's no need. It's just a natural process that happens without much care. You can start a veggie garden using your leaves and your compost without having to dig up the lawn. You'll just have that space kind of marinate over the winter, and you'll have beautiful soil ready for that spot in the spring. You can also dig the leaves right into your garden to overwinter, and they will deteriorate and add organic material to your soil. I wanted to make a point of telling you about climate change and carbon sequestration. It's really important for us to remember that this is a cycle in our environment. Carbon is taken out of the air from the plants. The plant uses it. It respires oxygen into the air, and then it breaks down and it falls to the ground as organic material. And then the carbon is stored into our earth and restores the earth or the soil for future growth. And when we remove that carbon, just as I said in the soil web slide, we're completely destroying the cycle of earth regeneration. There are other practices that you can use to prevent the breakdown of your soil and protect it from erosion. You can decrease the level of soil disturbance. So you want to not till your soil. You want to keep it intact and just can put the food on top of it or your organic material on top. So you don't break up the aggregates in the soil. Aggregates are things that form when organic material is introduced into your soil with the help of plants and the microorganisms that are in the soil. They create pockets to protect carbon, to keep it in the soil and not let it evaporate into our atmosphere. You want to increase the mass and quality of plant and animal stuff that you put into your soil. So it's waste. that you don't want anymore, your animal manure, your plants that die. You want to keep that and turn it over into your soil. That will also keep the carbon in your soil, because you're feeding your microbes, which actually help store and keep your carbon in your soil. You want to improve soil microbial diversity and abundance. So the more microbes you have in your soil, the better you will have healthier plants, and you also have a better carbon sequestration in your soil. You want to also keep a continuous living plant layer on your soil, so protect it from erosion, from wind. It's a living thing, and it needs to be cared for. I know that many people take probiotics into their bodies to protect their organisms in their body, but we never think about feeding the organisms in our soil. By regenerating our soil, we can sequester more carbon underground and slow climate warming. So that's a really important fact if you're interested in the environment. I'd like to just take some questions now, if there are any, about things that I talked about leaves are good for.
We are good on the questions, Nina. I think you can go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to continue with other ways to use leaves. And of course, whenever I see a leaf pile, I can't hold myself back from wanting to run in there and play. And I encourage my grandchildren to do that. It's a wonderful feeling. It's fun. And it also breaks those leaves down quicker so that they'll make better food for your lawn. And there's also leaf crafts. You can play with your children, make wreaths and all kinds of masks and fun leaf crafts. And you get to know about the different types of leaves, and you can teach them about the importance of trees in our environment and leaves. Okay, so here are some ways to get the most out of your leaves. We're going to just talk about how to do these things at home. So what you're going to need is a mower, a leaf vacuum, and a rake, depending on how much activity you want to exert. I love to rake. It gives you really good exercise, and you can rake those whole leaves right into your flower beds and let your insects hibernate over winter. I also want to encourage you to keep your lawnmower serviced. You want to have your air filter, your your air filter and oil filter cleaned, and your blades as sharp as possible if you're going to do additional mulching during the fall. And also, if you really want to be environmentally correct, choose electric yard equipment. It's better for the environment. And the next thing you have to do is collect leaves. If you don't have a lot of trees, maybe your neighbors will supply them, or just driving through the county, I always love to see those clear bags because I can see exactly what kind of leaves are in there. Some leaves aren't good for your soil. We'll talk about that later. But you can never go wrong with leaves, and you can never have too much. Here's a way to help mulch your leaves right into your soil. You just take your mower. You can use your riding mower or your mulching mower. It doesn't have to be a mulching mower. You want to set it on the highest setting you can get it. And you want to just probably have to do multiple passings with the mower to get those leaves as small as possible so that they can fill in the gaps in your soil and prevent any weeds from germinating over the winter. There are studies that show that you should not cover more than 20% of your lawn with leaves. You don't want to smother them. So use your judgment and make sure that your leaves are still able to see the sun and to get air and to retain moisture. I don't really worry much about my lawn, but I do worry about my soil. And I do mulch leaves into the soil. And you can see that on the left, I start with a bigger pile, and you can see that on the right, you really can't see the leaves after they've been mulched. And I think I passed over that about 4 times to get those leaves really ground down so small particles would seep into the lawn. or the weeds. Of course, I also told you, optimize your mulching by keeping your mower in tip-top shape. And this is an electric mower that I borrowed from my friend. It's a little bit pricey, but it's really nice. I took it out for a spin and I'm tempted to buy one. And now your lawn is ready for the spring. When it starts to sprout, the leaves that are on that lawn will feed the new lawn and help to fertilize it, and also reduce the need to fertilize your lawn in the future. According to Purdue, they use 4,000 pounds of maple mulch leaves in 1 acre of grass, and they produce no undesirable effects on the turf, or the color, the growth, the thatching, the pH, or disease. They did eliminate a lot of weeds, and overall it was a very positive result and economical too. Now, how can you use mulching leaves to help our trees? And now I know a lot of us walk through our gardens or our neighborhoods, and we see this one on the right, the volcano mulching. It drives me crazy. The gardeners just heap that mulch onto the bark of the tree, which keeps moisture closely to the bark. The bark is supposed to be kept dry to prevent disease and insects from invading the tree. So now you've set up a perfect environment for insects and disease to penetrate your tree. And also it interferes with the inner bark of the tree, which is responsible for transporting food to the tree, the limb within the tree. And on the left, you'll see the proper way to mulch your tree. You want to spread it around the roots, so out towards the drip line of the tree, and to a maximum depth of 3 to 4 inches. And of course, keep it away from the trunk of the tree. You can mulch your perennial plants and shrubs with mulched leaves. You can do it mulch leaves, or you can keep the leaves whole to provide habitat for your insects. But all in all, I think it looks pretty attractive, and it's much more cost effective to do this. Another way you can use leaves is to make leaf mold. Leaf mold is beautiful humic type material that is used as a soil amendment. It doesn't have much nutritional value, but it does help the structure of your soil, and it helps it to retain moisture. For making leaf mold, you can use bins that are pictured on the left and just pile them with leaves and push them down as tight as you can, and add a little water as you fill them. And as you fill them, you can see in the center, this gentleman is filling the leaves, he's wetting them down, and you keep putting leaves and leaves until you have a full pile. And you can put them in, you could also mulch them down through a leaf mulcher. I don't really think that's necessary, but it will definitely hasten the process. Or if you have land that's available, you can just pile your leaves up in a wooded area and let them deteriorate by themselves. And the result, you can see on the lower right-hand corner, is this beautiful humic material. I've done this in my yard. This is, I had a paper bag of leaves and the bottom of it rotted, and some of it on the top had not deteriorated yet. But that is just beautiful, beautiful leaf mold. And on the left, on the right, it's not completely deteriorated, but it's still on its way. And that was a year that it kept in my yard. This stuff went right into my raised bed in preparation for planting my garlic. Arlington County also sells this plastic ring. It can expand up to 6 feet in diameter or smaller. It's I've had one over 15 or 20 years. It still is in pretty good shape. I've had, I used it for compost one year, and I did put kitchen waste in there, and I had some rodents chew some holes through it, but all in all, it's in good shape, and I use it for leaves now. It's pretty inexpensive. I think I paid $20 for this from the county. I'm sure with the inflation, it's gone up a bit, but it's worth it. This is a way you can start your veggie garden right now in the fall. It's kind of like a lasagna method. where you put down some cardboard on your grass and continue to put leaves and grass and yard waste with intermittent moisture applied. And then you just leave it over the winter and you'll have beautiful earth underneath there. And you can plant right into the decomposed organic material. It's a great idea. I've done that with several beds that I've put in my yard, and it works really well. You can make what I call veggie rings. These are just bags. You could fill them up with a little leaves, a little soil, a little grass, and just let it deteriorate over the winter. This is a little demonstration. I use chicken wire ring. It's about 3 foot high. You set it up in the location you want and the desired size, and you layer it like you did in the previous slides with leaves, grass. You could use kitchen waste, but you'd have to really be careful with the rodents because they are attracted by that. One way to keep the rodents out of that would be to keep it moist and to make sure that you really cut up your kitchen waste into really small pieces. You just repeat that, fill it and let it sit, and you can plant right into it. You can put your squash plants in there next year without even doing anything to it. And then you can move it and put it in another location and do it again in the fall. Leaf mold is a great additive for making your own seed starter mix. It's a soilless mix that you use for starting seeds. You don't need to have a lot of nutrition in this because you're just sprouting these seeds, not feeding them. So you could use your compost, or you can buy compost. I like to use sifted compost, sifted leaf mold, and 1 part perlite or washed coarse sand. I don't like to use perlite because it does have to be mined, and it's another drain on the economy when you can just buy sand. It's not mined, it's just available. And you mix that up, keep it in a container, and you're all set to grow your seeds next year. It's all natural, you know what's in it, and it will produce really good seedlings for your garden to be transplanted into your garden. Now with other plants like tomatoes and your brassicas, they are really heavy eaters. And usually when you start those as seedlings, you're going to need to move them at least once into a larger plant before you bring them outside. Now those plants need a little bit more nourishment. So this mixture of 2 parts sifted compost, 1 part sifted leaf mulch, and handfuls of perlite or sand, and then a little bit of worm castings to feed your new seedlings. And it works great. And you get really healthy plants because you know that when you grow in a medium, you're actually inoculating your seedlings and making them stronger and disease resistant. You can store your leaves in bins. I have a bin on the right here that I just put bags in, but if you're using this for your compost, you really want to do, grind it up, mulch it up into smaller pieces. And the volume of that leaf, you will be able to get, 5 or 6 bags of leaves if you mulch them into that container. Right now, I use this in my mulch pile. It's on my mulch composter, my composting bin on the left. It's a 3-bin system, and I don't use it the way they advise. The first one I do compost, the middle one I save my mulched leaves, and the end one I made big enough to do another compost pile. So I keep 2 compost bin, 2 piles going at once. And so I never am without my compost. And we'll talk about how to make this compost in the next segment. Any questions?
Yes, we have a couple about mulching around trees. One person asked, how far away from the base of the tree should you put the leaf mulch?
That's a good question. you want to make sure that the collar of the tree, now when you mulch a tree, you can see how it gradually goes up into the trunk, and you want to stay away from that collar. So you have to really look at your trees and how the roots are. But when you start to see that bark is starting to go up and curve a little bit, you want to stay away from that. So, I would keep it away about 2 or 3 inches just to make sure that no moisture gets near your bark.
Okay, thank you. Someone is preparing a flyer for their community, and they wanted to know if your volcano mulch graphic is in the public domain.
It
or
is.
how they would get it.
Yep, it's in the public domain.
Do you
That's
know
my favorite place to go.
Do you know where to go for it?
If you just Google, you say volcano mulching, and you
Okay.
can see where all those pictures come up, and you can choose. They have,
Okay.
ones that are illustrations, ones that are real pictures, but there's a plethora of information out there.
Thank you. Nina, you mentioned sifted compost and sifted leaf mulch. Where do you get a sifter, or how do you make one?
That's a good point. I thought about that last night. I didn't take a picture of it, but I use a few 2x4s, and I make it about 2 by 2. I make a square, and I put a wire mesh, construction mesh on it, screw it in, and I use that. Or if you have smaller jobs, you can use, in the Asian stores, they have these little scoopers that they scoop fried food out of. They're kind of round, and you can use that one. They have big ones and small ones. And when I'm potting plants, I do a little sifting just to make sure that, depending on what I'm growing, I get all the sticks and things out of the soil. So there's lots of things to use.
Someone else wondered if mulching is counterproductive if you're trying to protect critters in the leaves.
Well, right. I did, when I talked about mulching your perennials and your shrubs, you can leave leaves whole, and that will protect the environment. But if you don't like the look, you can mulch it. It's certainly better than putting them in the landfill or giving them away. So depending on how big your yard is, you can save some that have not been mulched, and you can mulch some if you're not particularly wild about just whole leaves laying around.
Okay, if you're worried about that, should you wait until the spring to do your mulching?
That would be good. Yeah, if you can hold off. Well, if you're going to use your dried leaves, you can't wait till spring. You're going to use those dried leaves now. And then use them in the spring and then take them off and mulch them after the critters have hatched.
I think they were worried about the critters in the leaves, and
yeah,
they're overwintering, and so would mulching in the spring be better?
Yeah, it's better not to mulch, but if you don't like the look of it, you can leave one area for the leaves that have been whole, and then you can mulch. So it's up to you. I like to leave them whole. Except on my lawn, because it's a lot less work. And I just pile them around my shrubs and perennials and clean it up in the spring. Yeah, I'm a very messy gardener in the spring. I don't do any spring cleanup, or not spring cleanup, I'm sorry. I don't do any fall cleanup. I don't cut my peonies. I leave my tomatoes up. I have a big cup plant that I trim, but it has a really hollow stem. It's great for habitats for insects. My yard is a complete mess in the winter, and I just keep the leaves off around the middle of the grass, because then it would really cause a lot of attention in the neighborhood.
Final question, should surface tree roots be covered with leaf mulch?
Yes, definitely. You want to cover your leaves, not smother them, but just cover them, I'd say 2 inches or so, just to keep them insulated and protected. But you don't want to put, heaps and heaps on those roots.
Okay, I think we can get back to your presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to make leaf compost. And this is another step up. Okay, we have leaves. They do a little bit of fertilizing. The leaf mold will provide soil amending, but leaf compost is actually an amendment and a fertilizer. and it's invaluable in a garden. So what exactly is backyard composting? What it is if you're a gardener like me, you don't like to wait around a long time to get something. So you want to speed it up. So what you're doing is you're taking things, you're combining them. And I almost took a picture of myself at the compost bin with a witch hat, because this is magic. You're using natural decomposition and you're making you're speeding it up by giving all these microbes like the optimal habitat so that they will tear into that stuff, break it down as quick as possible, and provide you with beautiful compost. So the simple ingredients for a great compost, it's just like a recipe. All you need is something to put in it, your carbons and your nitrogens. You need moisture, you need air, and you need the right temperature. And if all those are perfect, you can make mulch, or you can make composting in 3 months. And I have done that. So as long as your microbes are happy, you are going to get quick and really good compost. So let's talk about the ingredients that we use. The browns are considered the carbon material. They do have a little bit of nitrogen, but they're mostly carbon. And right now we're focusing on leaves, but you could put some sawdust. You have to use that with caution, because it does change the pH of your mulch, of your compost. You can use wood chips, you can use straw, and you can use newspaper. You can also use cardboard that's torn apart into smaller pieces. For the greens, they are nitrogen rich. And I kind of like to think those as the moisture that you're adding in, the moisture that you're adding into your compost. So fresh grass clippings that are kind of weed free, they are the biggest boost to your compost that you'll ever get. It cooks things down so fast, you'll be so surprised. You want to use your vegetable scraps from your kitchen, your fresh straw and healthy plant waste, and coffee grinds. The woman, Joyce, who takes care of our compost bin at Potomac Overlook, which is a demonstration garden in Potomac Overlook. It's an organic vegetable garden. She makes our beautiful composting quicker than anyone I've ever seen, and she uses coffee grinds, both used and cheaper brand unused. And that is a really good additive for your compost. So as in any recipe, you need to have a mixture. So we're going to use 3 parts brown to 1 part nitrogen. So you can get any container to do that if you want to be precise. You put a bucket of, or you put a compost pail of your kitchen waste in, you're going to get 3 compost pails of your leaves and your carbon, and you're going to mix it up and keep it watered. You want to have it in the consistency of a damp sponge to make that microbes really happy. And the more you mix it, the quicker it will deteriorate. Here's just an expanded list of things you could use from your kitchen. You can use crushed eggshells, fruit, vegetable peelings, Halloween pumpkins, that's coming up soon. Crushed crab or lobster shells, that's harder to deteriorate, but it does add some bulk to that to give air to your compost. Old flower arrangements, coffee grounds, tea bags. And we have a lot of breweries around here, and if you can get them to give you the waste from their brewing, that would be great. From your yard, you can put leaves, of course, you can put grass clippings, trimmings, and pulled annuals that are healthy and do not have any herbicides on them, and small diameter twigs. The twigs add some lift so that you can get some air into your compost pile. And I always start my compost with a layer of small twigs on the bottom, and then add my leaves, and then continue with nitrogen and continue the pile. These things are kind of tough to compost. Pine needle, pine cones, woody branches, corn cobs, husks, nuts, they're kind of self-explanatory. Magnolia leaves, they're so hard. If you mulch them down before you put them into the compost, it might be okay if those were the only leaves that you really had available, but they're not optimal. If you wanted to take your pine needles, you can mulch them, use mulch for acid-loving plants, like your rhododendrons, your azaleas, your blueberries, your raspberries. They love acid soil. So this would be great for them. These are some things that you never should put in your compost. Of course, invasive noxious weeds, dairy products, meat, grease, any manure from animals that are not vegetarians, insect-ridden plants, diseased plants, anything that has herbicides on it, black ash leaves and black walnut leaves are very bad. These plants, these trees are called allopaths. And what that means is these plants exude an enzyme that affects other plants. And in this case, walnuts are herbicide for other plants. They don't like to share their area with any other growth. So when you put those in your compost and then spread them on your plant beds, you're going to have trouble because that enzyme will still be there. Now the size of your pile is very important because if it's too small, it won't retain the heat. So you need to have at least a 3x3 pile so you can retain the heat that is produced from the microbes that are breaking down your organic material in your compost bin. Now, to get back to the leaf breakdown, when you make the leaf mulch, that is a cold process that's done primarily by fungus. And that fungus is really a good soil amendment because it is important in the sequestration of carbon. So leaf mold composting is a cold method, and leaf composting for compost, not for mold, is a hot or a thermal process because it employs bacteria as well as fungus. If you're interested in composting, you can use these containers. There's all different kinds. Some require a little bit more work than others. The bins don't really require anything. If you use the open bin, if you want to turn it, then you do have some effort. But the two bottom ones you just kind of fill, and as it deteriorates, they have little doors at the bottom with the finished product that you scoop out. That's a slower process, and the amount of compost that you get is a smaller amount. You just use it, you just have a little bit to use as you go. The 3-bin pile is my favorite, and I really find that to be the most effective. And I do convert my nitrogen and carbon waste materials into compost within about 3 months, and it's a very, very good product. And it's natural. Okay, you can buy things at the store. First of all, it's costing you money, and then some of them you really don't know what's in them. You really have to look at your compost or that you buy from the store to make sure that they don't have any waste solids in there, because if you use it in your vegetable garden, you do have a chance that you could put some kind of disease into your vegetables, which you might not want. If you're only using it for plants, I guess that's okay, but I'd rather use something natural. So my compost, I know what goes in, and I'm very self-assured of the result that the compost that comes out. Now you want to select a good location of where you're going to set this bin up. Some of them are stationary, some of them you can move around, and some of them are just, you have to keep there. So you want to have it easily accessible so that when you have your food scraps, you don't have to go, to wherever to dump that in. It's a big chore. You don't want to make it like that. You want to make it simple. So you'll keep it kind of close to your house, but in a location where you can't probably see it. Preferably in the shade. You want to have it on level ground so that the drainage you won't be sitting in water. You want to keep it away from wood structures because it is moist and it will cause rotting. And you want to be near a water supply. You can have a water tank, or you can have a water container from a rain barrel, anything that will give you water, because water is an important part of your composting. And you can do it right on top of a new planting bed. If you have an idea where you want to start a new planting bed, you can have one of these compost bins and let it sit there, and maybe a year or two, and later you'll have this gorgeous soil that will make your vision of a new planting site come true. Now, the visions of the benefits of composting, I just outlined them, but there are so many. I probably will include this on the handout. They range from soil structure, okay, moisture control, they improve aeration, they improve nutrition, they stabilize your pH. So when people say they have a soil that's too acid, and they are going to put sulfur or some other, chemical on there, if you continually compost your soil and keep it healthy, that will stabilize your pH. It does take a while, but at least you know that if you continually feed your soil, the pH will take care of itself. You also, by composting, you're inviting all these microorganisms into your soil, and those are key to the health of your plants. There's so many environmental benefits from composting. It prevents erosion. Actually, if you have really good soil, you can filter water that comes into your property. It will take out pollutants and maintain it in a spot so it doesn't pollute our water systems. You're replacing synthetic fertilizers when you use your own compost. You're reducing the landfill when you throw out all your yard waste that causes, people that have to haul it. You're going to take up space in your landfill. And also, when you have yard waste and organic material in your landfill, it creates leachate and methane gas, which just aids to climate change. So the benefits to your economy, you're changing waste into a good product, what people call waste. I don't know. It lowers the cost of food, and it lowers the cost of growing food. So it's an all-round win-win situation. It also lowers the cost of gardening, for us, because we already take what we've already bought from the store and use it as compost, and anything that our trees and all our yard waste goes into our composting and turns into something good for our soil. The health benefits. Well, we use fewer pesticides because our soils are healthy, and those microbes will protect our soil, protect our plants from disease. And we'll have cleaner water and fewer diseases if we keep the health of our soil the way it should be. This is my garden. I don't use any pesticides or herbicides. This is on the right is my new garlic bed that I just used all my leaf mold in to beef up my soil. And I have a raised garden, 3-foot raised bed right outside my door, which is now really growing onions, and I have some cilantro left over. My peppers are still blooming, and I am also growing cabbages under that little tent there. So it's totally organic, my garden, and mostly free. I love to, take leaves from the neighbors. I use yard waste. I have vegetarians that live next door that volunteer their vegetable scraps for my compost. And I use cover crops. When my beds are bare, I will plant cover crops, which renew the soil with nitrogen and other minerals. I use comfrey tea. Comfrey is an herb that is grown. It's a really good blend of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium when you make a tea out of it. You do have to make sure that you buy, if you want to plant a comfrey in your yard, you want to make sure that you get a Bocking 14 because it's a sterile plant. If you get a regular plant, it will spread and overtake your yard. The reason the comfrey is so good is because the roots go down into the subsoil, kind of like trees, and pull up all kinds of micronutrients and nutrients that are good for your soil. You can use the leaves just to lay them on the soil around your plants. You can use them in your compost to speed it up. It's a very good additive. I use alfalfa meal when planting my tomatoes. I side dress that, which means when you plant them, you add a little bit of this nutrient next to your plant so that it has plenty of food to bloom and grow roots. And fish emulsion, I use that for a lot of my other plants that I grow, for my carrots and whatever that, like food. It's a great additive for your plants as a fertilizer. So I hope this talk encouraged you to put your leaves and food waste to work for you in your garden. And if not, at least make use of your county organic waste programs. I know in Arlington now we started collecting food scraps along with our yard waste. So at least it's going somewhere to make valuable resource that you can actually get back and put in your garden. So keep these resources out of our landfill. There's so much waste in our landfill that's organic material. I think it's like 12% of our landfill is taken up with organic material that could be used elsewhere. It's a valuable resource. So let's try and keep that out of our landfill. And I like to leave with a quote that I found online. It really does sum up everything that I feel. Autumn repays the earth, the leaves which summer lent it. And I thought that's a beautiful quote, and it kind of summarizes everything that we talked about. Thank you very much for your time.
Are you willing to take a few more questions, Nina?
I certainly am.
Okay, we have a bunch. You had mentioned you do your cleanup in the spring. Someone wanted to know if you do that in early spring or late spring.
It has to do with the temperature outside. If it's really too cold, I really don't like to do it. So I kind of wait till maybe March when I'm starting to think about when I'm going to plant in my vegetable garden. So March is the earliest that I will put something in. So I will go out there and I'll kind of start to peck around and clean things up slowly and add them to my compost bin.
Okay. Two questions really on opposite ends of the spectrum. One person is an apartment dweller and wants to know, do you have any tips for how they could get involved in composting or leaf mulch? And another person apparently gets deliveries of leaves from landscaping companies and
Awesome.
wants to know how to deal with this huge mass of leaves. So there are two ends of the spectrum there.
So apartment dwelling. I mean, that's you could do the veggie rings if you have a balcony. You have a balcony or someplace outside where you can get a bin and stuff it full of leaves, or even a plastic bag and leave it there. And you can use that soil maybe for house plants or for the plants that you're going to maybe do on your balcony if you have a balcony. You can also take your food scraps to Arlington County or Alexandria County. They do have a drop off for food scraps, and that's a big help because anything you do is going to help the environment. And if you don't think that one person can help, think about during COVID when everybody stayed home. I felt that the air quality had greatly improved, and it was just a short time, less than a year, and I saw great improvements in the quality of the air. So if we just do a little bit, everybody does a little bit, I think it will help the environment greatly.
Okay, thank you. Someone asked about putting chicken or rabbit manure mixed with straw in the pile. I assume you would say okay.
Oh my God, yes. Let me tell you that the other person that asked about how she deals with all the leaves that she gets from the gardeners. You can mulch those leaves and the volume of the leaves will deteriorate. It will just be less than half of the leaves you have. If you don't have a mower, you can put it in a garbage can and use a weed whacker and just whack those leaves down to small particles. And when you leave them in the bins, you'll notice that within a week, they concentrate down and compact. So you will be able to handle as many leaves as they give you. Now about the bedding for those for those animals that are vegetarians, the bunnies and that is fabulous. I have a person that has bunnies, and I regularly go and pick up the bedding and the manure for my vegetable, for my compost bin. It's sensational. You know, I don't want to tell anybody that she has it, because once I find someone with a bunny, it's like a secret thing that I go and get those. It's so valuable.
Do you have any good ideas for getting this message out? Because someone commented they see tons of people in their neighborhood putting their leaves out on the street.
Right, I know. We try our best. We have a neighborhood program that we kind of try and disseminate information about mosquitoes and volcano mulching and whatever. I'm in the process of putting a poster board outside, or a kiosk outside with information. As people walk by, they'll be able to read it. And I guess that's the only way. A lot of people are not inclined to garden. I mean, let's face it. So we thank God that we have the county that comes and sucks up the leaves and takes them and doesn't put them in landfill. So I feel good about that. And when we go and we dig our leaf mulch from our sites and bring it back to the yard, they're doing something good for us. So at least they're bagging them.
Yeah. Nina, someone asked that they had heard that leaf blower use was dangerous for insects. Is that something to worry about?
Leaf blowers are awful. They're noise pollution. I don't understand the blowing, where it goes. It's like you're blowing it onto the street, into other people's neighborhoods. But I imagine that they would be harmful just because they're so invasive of, blowing things all over and disturbing habitats and whatever. So yeah, I don't really I like the vacuums just simply because they help me mulch the leaves, but I don't use the blowers.
Okay. Someone asked if you would mind repeating the kind of comfrey you recommend.
Okay, comfrey you want to buy, it's called BOOKING, Booking 19. They call it Bocking, actually. Bocking 14, sorry. Bocking 14. It was developed by a Russian farmer to prevent this weed from getting out of control.
Okay.
And make sure that you plant your comfrey in a place where you want to keep it, because it's not easy to move, because the roots are so deep that it will just grow back.
Okay.
So.
Is it correct to think of leaf mulch as a subset of composting?
Composting is an amendment and a fertilizer. Leaf mulch is kind of, but the nutritional value of the leaf mulch is less than composting. So it's a different grade of compost, but I would say yes.
Okay. I think that actually covers all the questions. We got some compliments on your pretty graphics and what a nice presentation this was. And
thank you. I hope
you were a good trooper hanging in there with all our little technical glitches. Doesn't make for an easy talk. So thank you so much. This was great and very topical and a wonderful way to end the education year. So
great. I'm glad you've done it and I enjoyed it. Thank you very much for attending.
Okay.
And thanks for your help, Colleen.